James maneuvered through the crowded passageways of the intergalactic trade station with the ease of someone who had spent more than half his life in space. The vibrant hum of commerce filled the air, a mix of languages and the clinking of coins. He paused at a stall to admire some handcrafted trinkets from a nearby system, when his eye caught a figure standing awkwardly on the outskirts of the main thoroughfare. She was distinctly different, even in a place teeming with diversity. Her skin shimmered with a subtle iridescence, her eyes slightly larger and more luminescent than human norms. It was clear she was trying to keep to herself, but her height made her stand out. Curious, James approached, his steps unhurried. "Those gadgets from Delphi IV, they're pretty fascinating," he said, pointing towards the object in her hand. A smooth, glassy orb seemed to swirl with internal light. Lyria looked up, her eyes widening in a mix of surprise and caution. "Yes, I'm trying to understand how it functions," she replied, her voice tinged with an accent unfamiliar to James. "Don't worry, it took me ages to get it," James chuckled. "They're miniaturized weather simulators, great for terraforming enthusiasts, or those who miss the climate of home." She smiled slightly, the tension in her shoulders easing. "I see, thank you. I am Lyria, by the way, from Iridia." "James," he replied, offering a hand which after a brief hesitation she took. "I haven't seen many Iridians around here. First time at the trade station." "Yes, it's quite overwhelming," she admitted, looking around. "I didn't expect it to be so crowded." "That's the charm of it. You never know who you'll meet or what you'll find. Like these, for instance," James said, guiding her to another stall that showcased a variety of exotic plants. "Ever seen a flux root? They adapt their shape based on the mood of their surroundings." Intrigued, Lyria leaned closer to the plant, watching as it shifted from a droop to a purse stance. "It's fascinating. Your knowledge of these things, it's extensive." "Comes with the territory," James grinned. "I trade in flora and fauna. You have to know what you're selling, right?" Their conversation was interrupted by another merchant, a tall, burly man, who clapped James on the shoulder. "James, thought that was you. Who's your friend?" "This is Lyria, from Iridia." "Lyria, this is Carl, an old buddy from my academy days," James introduced them. "Pleasure to meet you," Carl boomed, giving Lyria a friendly nod. "Any friend of James here is a friend of mine." Lyria smiled, clearly warming up to the friendly overtures. "I am grateful for the kindness." "You looking for anything particular here? Gadgets? Gourmet supplies? Or just browsing?" Carl asked, his voice a deep rumble. "Just trying to understand everything," Lyria responded, her gaze still occasionally darting around nervously. "How about I show you some of the tech gadgets? They can be quite the mind benders," James suggested, eager to make her feel at ease. "I'd like that," she replied, her curiosity piqued. As they walked away from the plant stall, Carl excused himself to attend to a customer. James and Lyria continued their tour, with James pointing out oddities and marvels, each item sparking a new topic of conversation. It wasn't long before Lyria's initial wariness transformed into a genuine fascination, her questions flowing freely. "So what brings an Iridian to a bustling hub like this?" James asked as they paused to admire a series of miniature holographic galaxies. "I'm here to gather supplies for my community," she explained. "It's not just trade goods but knowledge. Experiences, things to take back to help us grow." "Sounds like a noble quest," James commented. Impressed. "It's not often you meet someone who travels galaxies just to bring back a piece of the universe to their home." Lyria laughed, a sound that seemed to light up her eyes. "When you put it like that, it does sound rather grand." Their easy camaraderie was a sign of a burgeoning friendship, founded on mutual interest and respect, set against the backdrop of the galaxy's grand marketplace. James led Lyria through a maze of corridors within the space station, each turn bringing them to quieter, less frequented parts of the structure. The hustle of the market gave way to the soft hum of the station's inner workings. "You seem to know your way around well," Lyria commented, her voice echoing slightly against the metal walls. "Or I've been docking here on and off for the better part of 10 years, James replied. "You get used to the layout. Plus, there are some hidden gems if you know where to look, like this place." He stopped in front of a modest door, unremarkable except for the small plaque that read the Stellar Brew. Pushing it open, he gestured for Lyria to enter first. Inside was a cozy diner that seemed to defy the sterile environment of the space station. The aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air, mingling with the low murmur of scattered conversations. A few patrons, mostly humans and a couple of alien species, sat at tables enjoying their meals. "This is one of my favorite spots on the station," James said as they took a seat by the window, which offered a view of the stars streaking by. "Best coffee this side of the Andromeda Gate." A man behind the counter, with a warm smile and a thick apron, waved at James. "The usual, James?" "Yes, thanks, Mark. And something sweet for my friend here. What do you like, Lyria? They have everything from pastries to pecan rolls." "Something sweet sounds wonderful," Lyria said, intrigued by the variety. As Mark set to work, James turned his attention back to Lyria. "So, tell me more about Iridia. What's it like?" Lyria's eyes lit up, a stark contrast to the cautious demeanor she'd shown earlier. "It's a world of vast deserts and bright skies. Not much water, but what we have we cherish deeply. Our communities are tight-knit because of this. Everyone knows everyone." "So that must make for a strong community," James mused, accepting 2 steaming cups from Mark, who set them down with a smile. "It does. We rely heavily on each other. It's different from here, where everything is so vast and people seem so isolated, despite the crowds." James nodded, sipping his coffee. "It's a different kind of solitude in space. You're surrounded by people, but connecting with them is the real challenge." They continued their conversation, discussing the peculiarities of life in space compared to a planet-bound existence. James shared anecdotes from his travels, while Lyria spoke of the traditions of her people. The conversation soon drifted to more personal topics. "What about family?" James asked. "You have people waiting for you back home?" "Yes, a community that's like a family. And my sister, she's expecting me to bring back some of these." Lyria gestured to the pastry she was enjoying. "Sounds like a lot of responsibility," James commented. "It is, but it's rewarding. Every successful trade means a better life for my people." James was about to reply when another human, a woman with a pilot's insignia on her jumpsuit, approached their table. "James, didn't expect to see you here." "Ah, Laura, meet Lyria from Iridia. Laura's one of the best pilots on the station." "Pleased to meet you," Laura said, offering a hand. Lyria shook it, her interest piqued. "James has been showing me around. It's my first time dealing with space stations of this scale," Lyria explained. "If you need tips on navigating these beasts or the best trade routes, feel free to ask," Laura offered with a grin. "I might just take you up on that," Lyria replied, her smile widening. As Laura excused herself, James leaned back, pleased. "See, it's not all solitude and silent corridors out here." Lyria nodded, looking around at the lively diner. "It's more vibrant than I expected, and everyone's been so welcoming." "It's all about finding the right corners and the right company," James said, raising his cup in a toast, "to new friendships, across stars and cultures." Lyria clinked her cup against his, her initial apprehensions melting away in the warmth of genuine camaraderie. "To new friendships," she echoed, her heart lighter than it had been since she'd arrived at the station. After leaving the diner, James suggested a change of scenery. "There's something I'd like you to see. It's a bit of a hidden spot, not many know about it." Curiosity piqued, Lyria followed him through a series of less frequented corridors. The station's usual metallic clinks and hums were softer here, replaced by the distant echo of the central hub's activity. "Where are we going?" Lyria asked, her gaze drifting over the nondescript panels and occasional viewports. "It's a little viewing deck. Not fancy, but it has one of the best views on the station," James explained, leading her to a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. He tapped a code into the keypad, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the walls lined with old control panels. James led her to a large window that revealed the vast expanse of space beyond, stars glittering against the infinite black, and the vibrant swirl of a nearby nebula. "It's beautiful," Lyria breathed, her face illuminated by the cosmic glow. "I come here to think," James shared, joining her by the window. Space can make you feel insignificant, or it can remind you that you're part of something incredible. Lyria nodded, her eyes fixed on the stars. It's similar on Iridia, in the desert at night. The stars look endless. It's humbling. They stood in silence for a moment, sharing the view. Then James broke the quiet. I've always wondered what it'd be like to visit other worlds. What do you miss most about Iridia when you're away? The sky, she answered without hesitation, and the silence of the desert vast and embracing. But tell me, what's it like, traveling between worlds? It's an adventure, James replied. Every new planet is a story, a slice of the universe's grand tapestry. But it can be lonely too. You meet many, but connections are fleeting. I can understand that, Lyria said, turning to him with a thoughtful expression. Perhaps that's why places like this, views like these, are so important. James smiled, glad to share this moment. Exactly. Makes the galaxy feel a bit more like home. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of the door opening again. A man in engineer's coveralls entered, pausing in surprise at seeing them. Oh, I didn't expect anyone here, he stammered. Hey, Tom, James greeted him. This is Lyria from Iridia. Lyria, Tom's one of the engineers who keep this station running. Nice to meet you, Tom said, extending a hand. Lyria shook it warmly. James was just showing me the view, she explained, gesturing to the window. Tom nodded, his eyes lighting up. It's a great spot, isn't it? Not many people come here, but it's worth the detour. How are you finding the station? It's more welcoming than I anticipated, Lyria replied. I've met several kind people today. That's good to hear, Tom responded. If you ever run into any trouble or need help navigating the technical side of things here, let me know. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that, Lyria said, genuinely grateful. After a few moments, Tom excused himself to check on some equipment, leaving James and Lyria alone again. Everyone's been so generous, Lyria remarked once Tom had left. It makes a difference. It does, James agreed. It's these connections that make life out here bearable. It makes us a community, not just a collection of travelers. Lyria looked back out at the stars, then at James. Thank you for bringing me here, for showing me this side of space life. It's my pleasure, James said. I hope it helps in some way to make your mission feel a bit less daunting. It does, Lyria affirmed, a soft smile playing on her lips. And it makes me think perhaps there are more reasons to travel the stars than I first believed. Their shared laughter echoed lightly in the room, the vastness of space outside no match for the warmth between them. After their visit to the viewing deck, James and Lyria continued their tour of the space station. The corridors were bustling as they made their way to another lesser-known section frequented by those in the know. I want to show you something else, James said, his tone hinting at a surprise. It's a bit of a tradition for those who spend a lot of time up here. Lyria's curiosity was piqued. Another hidden gem? So you could say that, James chuckled as they turned into a corridor lined with various artworks. Here, artists from different worlds display their works. It's like a miniature gallery. Crew members and visitors often come here to relax and find inspiration. The walls were adorned with vibrant paintings, intricate sculptures, and digital art pieces that seemed to pulse with life. Lyria was drawn to a painting depicting a serene landscape that reminded her of Iridia. This is beautiful, she remarked, her gaze fixed on the artwork. It feels like home. That's the idea, James replied. Everyone needs a bit of home, no matter where they are in the universe. As they walked, they discussed the different pieces, each stopping to admire the details of the artworks that caught their eye. James introduced Lyria to another frequent visitor to the gallery, a man named Ron, who was deeply engrossed in sketching on a digital pad. Ron's an artist here. He does some of the digital pieces you see, James said, nodding towards a vibrant display of light and motion. Ron looked up, a smile spreading across his face. James, always good to see you. And who is this? This is Lyria, from Iridia. She's new to the station, James introduced her. Welcome, Lyria. Ron extended his hand, which Lyria shook warmly. What do you think of our little gallery? It's more than I expected to find on a space station, Lyria admitted. It's comforting to see such creativity here. Ron beamed, clearly proud. "We try to keep the culture alive up here. It's easy to get caught up in the mechanics of space travel and forget the softer human side of things. If you'd like, I could show you some of the techniques we use," Ron offered. "Maybe even create a piece while you watch." Lyria's eyes lit up with interest. "I would love that." James and Lyria watched as Ron demonstrated his method, explaining the technology and artistic theory behind his work. The process was fascinating, blending traditional artistic concepts with modern tech, and Lyria found herself engrossed in the merging of worlds. As Ron worked, Lyria turned to James. "Thank you for bringing me here. Today has been full of unexpected discoveries." James smiled, watching her interact with Ron. "I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's not every day we get to impress someone from another world." Lyria laughed, the sound mingling with the soft hum of the station. "Your world is full of surprises, James. It's very different from mine, but today has made it feel a little more familiar." "It's all about sharing our worlds with each other," James said. "Space can be vast and intimidating, but it's also full of communities and connections. You just have to know where to look." Ron completed his demonstration, and with a flourish, turned the digital pad to show them the finished piece of vibrant, swirling depiction of the stars they had viewed from the deck earlier. "It's incredible," Lyria breathed, appreciating the colors and flow of the artwork. "Consider it a welcome gift," Ron said, handing her a copy of the digital file. "A reminder of your visit here and the connections made." As they left the gallery, Lyria felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the artificial climate of the station. The cold, vast frontier of space felt a bit smaller, a bit more like home, thanks to the kindness and creativity of those she had met. James' simple invitation had turned into a profound journey into the heart of the space station's community, showing her that even among the stars, humanity could find ways to express and connect. The day wound down as James led Lyria away from the gallery to a popular social spot on the station, a lounge known for its relaxed atmosphere and eclectic mix of patrons. The place, called the Orbital, was a favorite among the station's transient population for its blend of traditional Earth entertainment and alien cultures. "This place is a bit livelier than the gallery," James said as they entered. The room buzzed with conversations, the clink of glasses, and the soft backdrop of a live band playing a fusion of jazz and alien symphonics. "I can see that," Lyria observed, her eyes scanning the diverse crowd. "It feels vibrant." "Yeah, it's a great spot to unwind. Plus, the music's always good, and the games are fun." James gestured towards a corner where several tables were set up with various board games and digital interfaces. "Games?" Lyria's interest was piqued. "What kind of games?" "Here, let me show you." James led her to a table where a couple of people were setting up a holographic game board. "This is Raxus. Think of it as a blend of chess and virtual reality. It's very popular around here." A man at the table looked up and smiled. "James, joining us for a round?" "Sure, Ted. This is Lyria. She's new to the station. Thought I'd introduce her to the wonders of Raxus." "Welcome, Lyria. Ever played before?" Ted asked, offering a hand. "No, but I'm eager to learn," Lyria replied, shaking his hand. "Great. I'll set up a tutorial round for you." Ted quickly adjusted the settings on the game, explaining the basic rules. "It's all about strategy and anticipating your opponent's moves." James and Lyria joined the game, and Ted walked them through the basics. Lyria picked up the concepts quickly, her strategic mind adapting to the new challenge. As they played, another regular, a jovial man named Marco, joined them. "James, who's your friend?" "This is Lyria, from Iridia." James introduced her again. "She's just getting the hang of Raxus." "Ah, a new strategist among us." Marco chuckled, pulling up a chair. "Mind if I watch?" "Not at all," Lyria said, concentrating on the game. She made a daring move that caught James off guard. "Is that a good move?" she asked, unsure. "Very good," James admitted with a laugh. "Looks like you're a natural." The game continued with friendly banter and tips from Ted and Marco. Lyria's initial hesitance gave way to a growing confidence as she started to understand deeper strategies. After the game, which Lyria won to the surprise of her companions, they moved to the bar to grab some drinks. James ordered a round of the lounge's signature cocktails, Nebula Blasts, and a favorite local brew for Lyria. "So, Lyria, what do you think of our little corner of the galaxy so far?" Marco asked, sipping his drink. "It's more welcoming and fun than I expected," Lyria responded, her smile bright. "I didn't realize there would be so much to learn and enjoy here." "That's the beauty of space stations like this," Ted added. "They're melting pots of culture, technology, and of course people. It's easy to find something new every day." James nodded, watching Lyria blend into the group with ease. "It's all about the connections we make. Places like this, they help bridge the gaps between worlds." The evening progressed with more games and plenty of laughter. Lyria felt herself drawn into the camaraderie, her earlier reservations slowly melting away to the warmth of new friendships. As the night drew to a close, James and Lyria said their goodbyes to Ted and Marco, promising to meet up again soon. "Thank you for this," Lyria said as they walked back to her quarters. "I've learned a lot tonight, not just about games, but about what it means to be part of this community." "That's what I hoped for," James replied, pleased. "It's important to find your place, especially when you are far from home." Lyria nodded, her heart lighter than it had been since her arrival. The station was no longer just a maze of corridors and commerce. It was a place of connection, a place where she could find common ground with the most unexpected allies. The following day, James invited Lyria to join him in one of the station's communal kitchens, where people from various cultures could prepare meals from their homeworlds. The kitchen was bustling with activity, with several individuals and groups chatting and cooking. "Today I thought we'd cook something together," James said as they entered the kitchen. "It's another way people connect here through food." "That sounds wonderful," Lyria replied, her eyes scanning the array of ingredients and utensils. "What will we be making?" "I was thinking something simple yet popular back on Earth. How about pancakes?" James suggested, pulling ingredients from a nearby pantry. "I've never had pancakes before," Lyria said, a hint of excitement in her voice. "You're in for a treat then," James laughed. They found an open spot at the counter, and James began to show Lyria how to mix the batter. As they mixed the ingredients, a man next to them, noticing Lyria's unfamiliarity with the process, chimed in. "First time making pancakes?" he asked with a friendly grin. "I'm Derek, by the way." Lyria, and yes, it's my first time, she replied, returning the smile. "James is teaching me." "Great choice, James," Derek said, flipping his own pancakes expertly. "If you need any extra tips, just let me know. I used to run a breakfast stall back on Mars." "Thanks, Derek. I'll definitely shout if we're about to make a pancake disaster here," James joked. Lyria carefully poured the first batch of batter onto the hot griddle, intrigued by the sizzling sound it made. Derek offered a few pointers, and soon she was flipping pancakes like a pro. "Seems you've got a natural talent," Derek commented as they all admired Lyria's perfectly golden pancakes. "Or a great teacher," Lyria said, giving James a grateful look. With a stack of pancakes ready, James showed Lyria how to top them with various syrups, fruits, and other toppings. "The best part of pancakes is dressing them up. Here, try the maple syrup, it's a favorite." As they sat down to eat, more people joined, intrigued by the interaction. James introduced Lyria to each new face, explaining her journey from Iridia. The atmosphere was warm and welcoming, filled with the rich aromas of different cuisines and the sound of laughter and conversation. Cooking together, sharing meals, it's a kind of universal language, James explained as they ate. It's not just about the food. It's about sharing a part of yourself. Lyria nodded, taking in the scenes around her, the mingling of cultures and the easy camaraderie. "I can see that. It's like the games last night. Another way to bridge gaps." "Exactly," James said. "It's these everyday things that can really bring people together." After the meal, Derek invited James and Lyria to join a group planning a cultural exchange evening. "We're gathering stories, recipes, music, anything people want to share from their worlds. You should come, Lyria. It'd be great to have something from Iridia." "I'd love to," Lyria said, her enthusiasm growing. "I can share some traditional Iridian music and stories." "That's the spirit," Derek clapped his hands in delight. "It's shaping up to be a fantastic evening." As they cleaned up, James leaned over to Lyria. "See? You're already a part of the community. Lyria smiled, a sense of belonging beginning to take root. Thanks to you, she acknowledged. No, thanks to your openness and willingness to dive in, James corrected her gently. It makes all the difference. Lyria thought about her initial fears and how far she had come in just a few days. The station, with its myriad corridors and countless faces, didn't feel so daunting anymore. It felt like a place where she could actually belong. As they left the kitchen, Lyria felt lighter, buoyed by the genuine connections she was forming. It wasn't just about surviving in a new environment. It was about thriving through the shared experiences of this diverse cosmic enclave. The cultural exchange evening was bustling with activity when James and Lyria arrived. The hall was decorated with items and symbols from dozens of different cultures, creating a colorful tapestry that buzzed with the excitement of shared humanity and alien traditions. Looks like it's going to be a great night, James remarked, looking around at the gathered crowd. I'm a bit nervous, Lyria confessed, clutching a data pad containing her presentation and music files. I've never shared anything from Iridia with so many strangers before. You'll do great, James reassured her, guiding her towards a small group gathered around a table laden with dishes from various worlds. One of the men at the table turned and smiled as they approached. James, glad you could make it. Who's this? This is Lyria, from Iridia, James introduced. She's going to share some of her culture with us tonight. Fantastic. I'm Aaron, the man said, shaking Lyria's hand. I brought some culinary experiments from my last visit to the Triangulum galaxy. Ever tried nebular nectar? Not yet, Lyria replied, intrigued. Give it a shot. Aaron handed her a small, shimmering drink. Lyria tasted it, her eyes lighting up. It's wonderful. Sweet with a hint of something tangy? Exactly. It's a hit at these gatherings. You should consider adding something Iridian next time, Aaron suggested. I might just do that, Lyria said, her confidence growing. As the evening progressed, various attendees took to the stage to share stories, music, and performances from their homeworlds. Finally, it was Lyria's turn. With a supportive nod from James, she stepped up to the front, her nerves settling as she began to speak about Iridia. The deserts of Iridia are harsh, but they are alive with beauty and tradition, Lyria began, her voice clear and strong. She shared images of Iridian landscapes and played traditional music, the haunting melodies filling the room and captivating the audience. When her presentation ended, the applause was warm and enthusiastic. James beamed with pride, clapping loudly. See? They loved it, he whispered as she rejoined him. I didn't realize how much sharing my culture could mean to me, Lyria admitted, a joyful tear glistening in her eye. It's not just about sharing, it's about connecting, James said, his eyes scanning the room filled with smiling faces and nodding heads. The rest of the evening was spent mingling and learning from one another. James introduced Lyria to more people, each introduction paving the way for deeper discussions about life, the universe, and everything in between. As the event wound down, a man who had been particularly moved by Lyria's music approached them. Your presentation was the highlight of my evening, he said. I'm Michael, by the way. I work on interspecies communication. Your music, it could really help bridge emotional gaps between species. That's an interesting thought, Lyria responded, flattered and intrigued. Would you be interested in collaborating? We could create a program that uses your music as a foundational element for new communication protocols, Michael proposed. I'd like that, Lyria said, exchanging contact information with Michael. As they left the event, James and Lyria reflected on the night. You've made quite an impact, James said, and maybe even started something bigger than just a cultural exchange. Lyria looked up at the stars visible through the station's viewing ports. Today was about more than just sharing. It was about understanding and being understood. Thank you, James, for encouraging me to open up. It was all you, Lyria. And this is just the beginning, James replied, confident that the connections Lyria had made would continue to grow long after the evening had ended. Together, they walked back to their quarters, the station's corridors echoing with the sounds of newfound friendships and the echoes of Iridian melodies, a testament to the night's success and the promise of future collaborations. The station was quiet in the early hours, a stark contrast to the vibrant energy of the previous night's cultural exchange. James and Lyria sat in the observation deck, a tranquil space with a sprawling view of the cosmos beyond. "That was quite a night," James remarked, his voice low, reflective. "It was," Lyria agreed, her gaze fixed on the stars. "It's strange. I came here filled with apprehension, but now I feel a sense of belonging, maybe." James nodded. "It's amazing, isn't it? How sharing a piece of yourself can open so many doors." "Yes, and it's all a bit overwhelming," Lyria confessed. "Michael's proposal about using my music, it could really change things for Iridia." "It could," James said, his tone encouraging. "You have a chance to make a significant impact, not just on your world but across the galaxy." Lyria turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "And what about you, James? What are you looking for out here?" James paused, considering her question. "I used to think it was about finding new trade routes, making a profit. But it's become more than that. It's about the connections, like the ones we made last night. It's about helping bridge worlds." "That's a noble goal," Lyria said, smiling. "It's more fulfilling than I ever imagined," James admitted. Then, changing the tone, he added, "Speaking of goals, what do you plan to do next? After the collaboration with Michael, I mean." Lyria sighed, a mix of excitement and nervousness in her breath. "First, I need to ensure my community on Iridia benefits from this. And I want to explore more, learn more about other cultures, other worlds. There's so much out here." "There is," James agreed. "And whatever you need, I'm here. Whether it's advice, resources, or just someone to talk to." "Thank you, James. Your friendship has been one of the best things about this journey," Lyria said, her voice warm with gratitude. They sat in silence for a moment, each lost in thought, the vastness of space a perfect backdrop for their contemplation. Finally, James spoke up. "You know, there's a group of traders and cultural ambassadors meeting next week, people who specialize in what you're looking to do. It might be useful for you to join, share your story." "That sounds like a wonderful opportunity," Lyria responded, her interest piqued. "Could you help me get in touch with them?" "Of course," James replied. "I'll make the introductions. You'll fit right in." As the station's artificial dawn began to light the observation deck, the two friends stood and stretched, ready to face the day ahead. "James," Lyria said as they prepared to leave, "last night, one of your friends mentioned something about a trading mission to the Outer Rim. Are you going?" "I can." James laughed softly. "Thinking about it, the Outer Rim is the edge of known space, full of unknowns and challenges." "Sounds like an adventure," Lyria said, a twinkle in her eye. "It is. Maybe you'd like to join me," James suggested, half joking. Lyria considered it for a moment, then nodded. "Maybe I will. It sounds like just the kind of challenge I need." They left the observation deck together, stepping out into the bustle of the waking station. Ahead of them lay a galaxy of possibilities, their paths intertwined by shared experiences and mutual aspirations. The future was uncertain, but for James and Lyria, the promise of new horizons was a thrilling prospect.